Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 9 o'clock, which means it's time for another Talk Magic. And today I am here with a legend. And I use that, I mean every word when I say legend. He's a legend of the British Magic community. He has been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. He is considered one of the, if not the best stage magician, illusionist, escapologist. This person has been there, done it all, bought the t-shirt and then some, and also one of the nicest guys in magic as well. Super excited to have him on the channel. I am, of course, talking about the one and only Danny Hunt. How you doing, Danny?
Wow, that was quite a build-up, Craig.
It's true. I mean, everybody I speak to has a Danny Hunt story. Everybody I speak to. But no, in a good way. And I'll speak to everybody and I'm like, oh, Danny, let me tell you the time, or oh, Danny this, or oh, Danny that. You know, everybody knows you, and nobody ever has anything but like super positive things to say about you. I mean,
I hope so. I always like to try and get on with everyone, and it's great. Thank you for having this as well. Thank you for having me on. It's lovely of you.
Thank you so much. I know how busy you are. We've been trying to do this interview for a while, so I'm so glad that we got a chance to do it. And
yeah, it's good fun. Looking forward to it, Craig.
I'm looking forward to this because although we know each other and we chat to each other quite regularly, I don't know you well enough to know your entire story. So I'm really looking forward to this interview as well.
Okay, yeah.
Because I've seen you perform so many times, and it's always incredible.
We're always passing each other by conventions. I always seem to be able to catch a glimpse of you doing something in the corner or on a stand, doing your bit, and I give a quick wave, and then on I go again. So. Yeah, it's awesome to sit down almost face to face. Shame we didn't have a drink, but
absolutely,
yeah,
as close as you can get, right? As close as you can get. But for anybody who doesn't know who Danny Hunt is, let's give them a bit of a frame of reference. So, first of all, it feels like you've been in the community forever, but obviously you have an origin story. At some point, you started in the industry. How did that happen? How did you? Okay. When did the magic bug bite? What's your origin story?
So I got into magic. My mum used to be a piano teacher, and used to always play the piano. And she tried to get me into doing magic. Into doing music, into playing the piano, and it didn't happen. It just. I think I'm tone deaf, to be quite honest with you, Craig. It just wasn't happening for me. And she, her other love that she had, which I didn't know at the time, I'm going back, we must have been about 8 or 9, maybe younger, actually, probably younger. She loved magic, and she actually bought a magic book when she was a kid. And when her parents found out that she bought this magic book, her parents they weren't happy. They weren't happy at all because they thought it was like, they were very, very religious, thought it was witchcraft, work of the devil. So she was told it was thrown away. What they didn't know is my mum rummaged the dustbin, removed the magic book and hid it with all of her music books. Wow. So she gave me the magic book. And shortly after that, I got a magic set as well, a little Fisher-Price magic set. Which is an awesome little magic set. I'm looking at it there. So yeah, it was that was kind of what got me into doing it. I started going out doing magic shows for local friends and cousins' birthday parties.
And how old were you at this point?
So I would have been about 8 or 9 at this point when I was actually going out. Maybe a little younger, Craig, but off I go doing the things. And then all of a sudden one day my dad came in from work. He said he'd been chatting to his friend at the local pub. He's got a Christmas party they're doing, and he said that he'd like you to come along and do a few tricks, and he's going to pay you for doing it. So I went off with my little box of magic tricks. I used to go where I live. There was the first real magic shop I discovered. Was a little tiny. It was a joke shop in the old Court Arcade in Darlington. I live in the northeast, and there's a little town called Darlington. It was the old Court Arcade. And I remember walking down this long arcade. And on the right-hand side, there was this red-fronted shop, and it was Ludi's Magic and Joke Shop, and they had everything you could want, the doggy poos, the stink bombs, all of that sort of stuff. But then he had all of the magic stuff. So I went in there and I bought magic tricks from him. Do you remember Mystic Smoke, Craig? The little
Yes, and you rub your
stuff
finger
you'd put on your fingers. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Well, I remember getting this real sticky stuff and putting it on my fingers and rubbing it together and making this smoke. And yeah, I just thought it was incredible. So that was the opening to my magic set, and then I had sticky fingers for the rest of the show, which was always always difficult when you're doing card tricks. So yeah, so I bought magic tricks from there and met some brilliant, wonderful people there that helped me and encouraged me along the way. And as I say, I went off to the local Christmas party, and I did my magic at the local Christmas party, and the local news, the local newspaper. They covered the story of that I was there and snapped some pictures. And a week later, I'm in the newspaper, and that was like my first time being in the newspaper. The local newspaper was a big deal for me, and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. You know, my bow tie and my sparkly waistcoat on. Do you want to see? Do you want to see a picture?
Yeah,
I'm
I'd
in a
love
little
to.
over
That'd
here.
be great.
And this is not really. So I think here I'm about 11 in this picture, and I don't know if you can see it properly. There's my
Oh yeah.
sparkly
Wow.
waistcoat.
That's
So
amazing.
that was what kind of got me into doing magic, and I loved it. After that show, I just wanted to do more, and I remember wanting to do more and buying more tricks. And all I wanted for Christmas then was magic tricks, and my mum going into the little magic shop and buying me Tenyo magic, which I absolutely love now. I collect Tenyo magic, which is I don't know what any of your viewers do, but some really clever things in the Tenyo collection. I love doing that. I love collecting the Tenyo stuff. But that was kind of what got me into doing magic. And then I started to want to do more than what I could see in the shop. So I wanted to see those. I want to see those big illusions. I wanted to do those big magic tricks. And I remember watching Doug Henning when I was a kid. Again, about the similar sort of time. I wasn't well, and I was in hospital, and there was a TV in the corner, and Doug Henning Magic Special was on, and that was the first time I'd ever seen the Subtrunk, the Metamorphosis. It was Doug Henning doing it. I get goosebumps thinking about it. And it was just incredible watching Doug do this. And I remember being at home with my sister, and we would take two chairs, and I would stand on top of the chairs, or she would stand on top of the chairs rather than hold the cover, and I would climb up out of the back of the chairs, and we'd play around with cardboard boxes doing these big illusions, or what we thought were big illusions. And that was it. That was kind of got me into doing it. And one of the guys that I'd met at the little magic shop, a guy called Reg, he was an old magician, and he wanted to encourage me to do some magic. And I bought a set of linking rings, and he was teaching me how to do the linking rings at the time. And he gave me a book and said, "Oh, read the book. Go and read the book, and tell me what you think to it." And so again, I wasn't 10 or 11 years old. I sat down and reading the book, or trying to read the book. And it was at that point I was really struggling. And my mum had a meeting with the teachers at school, and they decided that I was dyslexic, which I am dyslexic. And it turned out that reading was very difficult. Even now, it's despite the fact I'm sat here with all these books and everything, I've got like 3,500 magic books, and I love magic books. But it was quite hard to go. But it was the magic that encouraged me to really, study and try reading and practice reading and want to be able to read. So I think without the magic, I'd have had no interest in school at all, because obviously when I was at school, I really had to study and learn hard to be able to read the books that I wanted to learn the magic tricks from. So that was it. I started then collecting books, got some incredible magic books, and found some incredible illusions that we would build from the books. And my dad and my brother would help me build the illusions, and that was it. Off we went, starting to do illusions. My first, if you want, real illusion was a flying carpet illusion that I got from Kmart Magic, Morley Budden at Kmart Magic many years ago. And Morley I didn't quite have enough money for this thing. And Molly asked me how much money I did have, and he said, "Okay, you can have it for that." And I got this flying carpet, and I did it with my sister. So my sister would sit on there, and yeah, that's what got me into it.
That's amazing. And before we carry on, anybody who's watching this that's maybe younger or newer into magic, they're probably going to find what you're saying a little bit strange, because these days when people get into magic, it's all about close-up and it's all about learning the latest close-up trick.
Yeah.
You and I got into magic, at least this is my experience, I'm fairly sure it was yours as well. It wasn't about close-up. I remember the first thing I desperately wanted to buy was a chair suspension, not a pack of cards, not a trick. Like the first thing I was like, right, I'm saving up for a chair suspension. And that's kind of what it was like back in the day, wasn't it? It was like stage magic was really the thing.
It was. And do you know what, Craig? I think for me, back in the day when I was starting out, the magic that we were watching on TV wasn't like the David Blaine's or the Dynamo doing their wonderful and incredible street magic, which is great. This was back then. I remember watching people like Johnny Hart doing that wonderful act with the budgies, and always like there was always a guest magician on a TV show. When I was a kid, or the kids' TV shows. I always remember thinking there was a TV show called Going Live, and I always remember watching Jeffrey Durham on there do his block penetration and his bending mirror, and thinking, wow, that's incredible, with Philip Schofield and Sarah Green. And then there was another TV show I remember that they used to do a guest spot for a young magician every week, and it was called The 8:15 from Manchester, presented by Ross King, and he every week would have a young magician, and you'd have to send a video in of your act or whatever you do, and I remember doing that and never getting invited to go and perform on the 8:15 from Manchester. But yeah, it was all stage stuff. There weren't really card. Well, there was obviously, but I think again things like the magic competitions, the Young Magicians of the Year, and things like that. It was you were putting together an 8-9 minute long act of stage magic, parlor magic, not cards, not close up tricks or anything like that. Last time I think I was at the Young Magician of the Year, there was a lot of very talented magicians. Which is wonderful, but it wasn't the type of act that we all did as kids. It wasn't we all, maybe back then, I remember there being everyone having doves and everyone doing dove manipulation. Some wonderful acts like Philippe Hitchcock, who I always remember whenever I was in a magic competition and Philip Hitchcock was coming along, it was always exciting because you got to see Phil's act with the doves and the vanishing bird cage that incredibly reappeared again, and some wonderful acts that spent all their time. Dominic Wood, I don't know if you remember Dominic with his act. So he was in the Young Magician of the Year at the same time as me, and again it was the doves and the stage magic, the zombie ball and stuff like that. And for me, it was I wanted box illusions. I wanted the illusions there. So for me, I would do or I did a crystal casket appearance of my sister in the box. I did a little bit of card manipulation because I wanted to show the judges that I could do card manipulation. So I did a little bit of card manipulation. I did a zigzag, mini cube zag, sorry, and a sub trunk. And that was it. That was my acting. I did that stage show in as many different places as I could. That stage act, that competition act became my last 10 minutes of my show when I was going off doing the locals women's institute, or even children's birthday parties. I'd still turn up with these illusions just so I could practice that last 10 minutes of my act over and over again.
There's no substitute for flight time, is there? There's no substitute.
No, not at all.
Out there and do it. How do you get good? You get good by just doing it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. So, and I think that was the thing. And in the Northeast, we were notorious for having critical crowds of people. So I'd be all of a sudden a Sunday afternoon in the local working men's club, performing my act because my dad had arranged it with the club secretary. I'd be there doing my act, and if they didn't like you, they'd usually tell you. So, but yeah, it was great fun. was great fun.
That's awesome. And so what was the plan? So you're at a point now where you're in school, but you've got these illusions, you're in the Young Magicians Club, you're wanting to you're going out and you're doing shows and so on and so forth. What was the plan? Was the plan always, I want to be a professional magician? Or was it, hey, I'm just having fun, but I don't know where I'm going to go with my life?
For me in my head, I was going to be a magician. You know, I'd seen the magicians on TV, I'd seen the magicians live, and that's what I wanted to do. I always wanted to do that. And I remember it came to that moment with the careers advisor at school. And there I am, and I chat to the careers advisor about what I'd like to do. I said, oh, I'd like to be a magician. And she said, oh, a magician. She said, well, that'd be good. That'd be really good. What we're going to do is we'll get you some work experience at the local builder's yard. And I was sent off to a company called JRG Builders, which don't exist anymore. But I was sent off to JRG Builders to help sand floors and paint window frames and things like that. And I actually have found that while I was there, I've been chatting to the guys in the lunch, and I actually found that I ended up doing card tricks for them. And I used to spend most of my time in the lunch breaks doing card tricks and con tricks, finding the lady usually, and winning a few pennies from the guys there, who every day would go, do it again, let's do it again. And I just did it again and made myself a few little pennies for pocket money.
That's great. That's absolutely.
Do you know what? I had a woodwork teacher. My woodwork teacher and my science teacher. They were the guys the two teachers that had really kind of discovered that I was dyslexic at school, and they were the ones that encouraged me to do magic and encouraged me. I remember my woodwork teacher marching me off to the careers officer and saying, look, he can't go to a builder's yard. He's got to be, doing something in entertainment. I still ended up going to the builder's yard, but a couple of weeks later, I ended up doing a week with the Durham Theatre Company, and we did so I got a chance to go into the theatre and do some stuff with those guys, which was nice. So it was nice that these two teachers encouraged me. Mr. Hindmarsh, my woodwork teacher, he used to play in a band, so he had a little bit of an interest in entertainment, and I think he could see that it'd be nice that one of his students also wanted to be in entertainment. So yeah, it was nice to be encouraged by those guys.
Wow, that's fantastic. So the goal was to be a magician, and close up really wasn't. I mean, obviously you did close up. You talked card tricks and everything, but that wasn't your kind of your focus. So when you finished school, what happened then? Did you go straight into being a magician? Because at that point you were probably doing a bunch of gigs anyway, right?
Yeah, I was going out. I was doing kids shows. I was going out doing kids shows. Still got my kids set. Still got my kids show on a little roll-on table I had. I'll never sell that. It's just so many memories there for me. It was stuff that I bought when I was a kid and ended up using and still occasionally use when my nieces and nephews want a magic show. I always go back to that box of stuff. Right. So it's always nice to have. But yeah, I was going out doing kids shows. I was going out doing close-up magic. I was going out and doing like I said, workingmen's clubs or wherever that would have me. And I finished school, and I thought I need to have a job, and I was and obviously I was always told we've got to get out and my mum and dad were always very hard workers. They constantly and my brother was he was a coal man, so he would go out in all weathers delivering coal to people for their fires, and it was horrible, but that's what he did. And I remember working with him, and that's kind of what I was doing the second I left school. So I was told obviously I needed a job, so there I am in the cold and the wet, carrying this big bag of coal on my back up a flight of stairs to tip it into someone's coal bunker. And my brother coming in one day and saying, "Danny, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm just going to unload this stuff." He said, "No. What are you doing? Why are you here?" I said, "I'm helping you." He said, No. He said, "You want to be a magician, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." And his words, he said, "Bugger off and go and do it then." So off I went. Literally a week later, he helped me put a little letter together, and I got my first audition. I went and auditioned for a company in Torquay. I did an audition for them. I got a job in Newquay at a holiday park, and that was my first, if you want, professional job. So I'd be there. I meant to be there as a entertainment coordinator, where I'd do all the entertainment throughout the week, including calling bingo and party dances with the kids, and then I do a kids magic set, and then I do twice a week I would do a family show for all of the family as well. And I remember coming to the end of that, thinking I'd loved every second of it, and the owner asking me if I wanted to come back the following year. But by this time, I was keen and wanted to go and get myself on a ship. Mm-hmm. So, and back then it was a little different as well, Craig. It wasn't like not like it is now. I went off to another company and I filmed my promo video in the garden late one night because it was dark and we had all the trees behind us, and we put fire torches in the garden and it looked all magical. And I did my promo video in the garden, sent it off to another company, got asked if I would like to go and audition for them, and a week later I was on a coach with all of my props heading out to Poland to get on a ship that would go backwards and forwards. It was a ferry that went backwards and forwards between Poland and Sweden. And when I got there, there was another magician getting off that ship, and it was Roy Davenport. So I met Roy Davenport for the first time, and I was again only a young boy. And I have a set of linking rings. Do you remember me saying that the guy Reg, he used to teach me magic? He was teaching me the linking rings at the time. When he passed away, he left me his linking rings, and I had this beautiful set of linking rings in a bag. I don't think I can quite reach them. They're in my cabinet, but I remember showing them to Roy, and I was always admired Roy's linking ring routine, and saying the story that Reg got these from his mum years ago, all the rest of it, and then Roy doing the linking rings with my rings, and it was lovely. It was great. Again, very very starstruck back then. I used to, as a kid, it was my first kind of contact, I suppose, with people that I'd seen on TV or people that I'd seen in shows. I suppose was Roy, and then obviously I was taking over as he was leaving the ship. He'd been on there for like 6 months or whatever it was, and that's what I did. So we did 3 shows a day, backwards and forwards on this ferry from Poland to Sweden, as well as embarkation duties where I would dress as Captain Hook and stand and wave at people and all the usual stuff you had to do, and close-up magic as well. So, but the majority of the other thing was that I didn't know at the time that I wasn't expecting all of the guests. So in my head as a kid, I'm thinking all of the guests, they'll all speak English, but of course they didn't. We had all the Polish passengers and Swedish passengers. So all of a sudden I realized that I had to adjust my act. So that act that I would chat in normally changed, and it became all silent. And the close-up magic, I learned how to do a couple of close-up magic tricks, all in Polish. Possibly the worst Polish ever, but it got me through.
Well, you know what's really interesting about what you're saying here? And I agree. My background is, as you know, I was a redcoat at Butlins, and I did. The point I'm trying to make here is a lot of the newer people that are coming into magic, I see advice on the Facebook groups and various things. And when people say, I want to be a professional magician, what should I do? The advice is, well, set your price at £1,000 for a 2-hour close-up job and never go below that. I've got no experience. It doesn't matter. That's what you've got to do. Well, my attitude has always been, you've got to go somewhere to be bad in order to be good. And working in a holiday park like that, doing the action dances, doing everything, not just the magic, it teaches you way more than that experience. And what you're doing on the ships there will pay off tenfold compared to somebody who isn't prepared to do something like that. And I think that the advice that's given out a lot of the time these days is wrong. And I think that you do have to go. You have to learn your trade. You can't just go straight in at this level without
No,
having
no.
experience.
Yeah, I agree, Craig. Yeah,
it's very interesting.
I remember coming back from the ship, and I was literally, in fact, just before I got on the ship, I'd done the British Magical Championships, and I'd loved doing it, but that, I think the title of at the time helped as well. The British, I was British Junior Magical Champion because I wasn't, British Junior Magical Champion. But I think that title did help with selling of the act. And I think you went out there and I did the stuff. And I think because I was doing it every day in a Force 10 gale and being thrown around all over the place, you did learn, what worked, what didn't work, how to look after your stuff, because if anything broke, you had to fix it because you were in the middle of the ocean. We had to literally do all the maintenance. And I think that was the thing. It was a great learning opportunity for me. The great recommended to anyone. Just get out there, go do it, do as many shows as you can, and that's certainly how you learn. Definitely, certainly how you learn.
Before we carry on talking about what happened when you got off the ship, I want to ask you a question. You mentioned the junior championships. That's a question that comes up on this channel a lot. Hey, should I enter a competition? What's the pros and cons? As somebody who's entered quite a few competitions, what advice, I suppose, firstly, twofold. One, why did you enter it? What was the reason? Was it because you thought it would help your career, or what? And secondly, what advice would you give people?
Yeah, so I was, at the time, I was a member of a magic society, a little magic society that was run by a lady called Cynthia Neptune. She used to encourage junior magicians. She used to have a group of wonderful junior magicians. And she always wanted us to enter the competitions that they did in their magic society. So that was kind of what got me doing it. And I think first of all, I went along not really knowing what to expect. And then I never really enjoyed them, I must admit, Craig. I went in and did them, but I don't think I enjoyed them. I don't think I enjoyed the pressure. And it felt like pressure, but not from anyone else, just the pressure to be on stage in front of magicians.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I enjoyed it particularly that much. And then I was asked, would I do Young Magician of the Year? And I decided not to do it. And then a couple of years later, it was coming round again, and my approach had changed a little. And I'm thinking to myself, well, actually, yeah, maybe I will go and do Young Magician of the Year. So I went and did that, and I had a great time with it. And that was the thing. I met some really cool people that I'm still friends with today. And it wasn't about the competition anymore. It was about the performance and the chatting to those people. So I wasn't feeling the pressure. I wasn't feeling the nerves. I was still nervous before I went on stage, but I was given the opportunity to go in and chat to these great people and do that. So I think the most important thing is don't put yourself under pressure for them, and relax a little when you're doing your stuff. I've seen your boy do his thing. He's incredible. He's so chilled. He's so relaxed. And he enjoys it. And I think that's the thing. If you don't enjoy it, God, don't go and do those competitions. Don't go and do them. But yeah, see Ryland doing his thing, and he's chilled.
You see him chilled on stage, and you see, if you could look into the wings, you'd see me back nerves. Like, there's a picture somewhere on the internet taken from the wings. Paul Zenon took it, and it was when Ryland was on the doing his stage act at Blackpool at the gala show. And he's on stage and he's doing great. And you just see me, it's taken from behind me, and you see me like this.
Yeah, I think that's how it is. I think I always remember my mum and my dad when I was off to do Young Magician of the Year. My dad was working, so he was at home. But I remember my dad saying, "You've got to call. As soon as you come off stage, you need to call." And then rushing around, trying to find a phone box back then to call home to tell my dad that it was all good. And yeah, it was, I think nerve-wracking, possibly more for them than it was for me. But yeah, I had a great time. And then from there went and did 1996. I'm just looking there. I've got the program in front of me. 1996 Blackpool Magicians Club British Magical Championships. And
well, that's
it was great. It is. I mean, again, you know, I'm looking at the program, looking at all the other wonderful acts that were on that same competition. Diamond and Jade, Michael Diamond, who's a
Yes.
brilliant. Yeah, and we've got Lee G, who again a wonderful illusionist, brilliant illusionist. Brian Sefton with his incredible dove act, and he's immaculate, everything you imagine a magician to be. You know, that was
Yes.
Brian there. Dominic Wood, Michael White, Krista Rosser. It's just some incredible Neil Austin, some incredible acts from back then. And there's me in the middle of it all with my magic and illusion stuff, which was at the time, as I said, nerve wracking, but I did enjoy it. It was something again because I wanted to do it, because I didn't feel like I had to go there and win or anything. It was a moment to go along there, and as I say, I knew a couple of the guys that were in the competition because we'd already done Young Magician of the Year together. So it was nice, you know, being backstage at the Horseshoe. And of course, the Horseshoe was the chance to be at the Horseshoe. And as a kid magician, I was going there, one of my heroes performing at the Horseshoe every night. And it was just a chance to be stood on that stage of where my hero would stand. You know, you'd stand there, Russ Stevens, I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, the OG, you know.
Yeah, you know, it was just I was, you know, on that very stage, you know, and he's and I always say to her, so, you know, he is my hero, was one of my heroes, you know, and it's you know, sitting at the Mystique, watching what he did, and kind of pushing magic way ahead of its time. I think back then Russ was doing, you know, there's just you know, if you look at it now, it doesn't feel like any of it's dated.
No.
It was modern, it was ahead of its time, and love Russ, love what he does. So yeah, so that was hang on, it's not the first one, I don't think, but there he is. Now I think I
The
don't
man
think
is
I've told. Yeah, so when was that? That was 94, that one. But I'd been going to Mystique way before then. I was going way before then, but and loved it. Always absolutely loved. You know, watching Russ do his stuff. And I've got all of the old posters that I used to collect from Mystique as well. So I've still
having
got all of
worked
those.
with him on Britain's Got Talent with Ryland and seeing how he managed all that. I mean, what he's doing now is just as incredible, you know.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah. Again,
Britain's
bringing
Got
back.
Talent has become such a great like way of promoting magic in the UK, and that's really because of Russ's involvement in the program.
Yeah, definitely. I did a couple of weeks ago. Worked on a little project with Russ, and it was great working with him. One, great working with him, but two, when you see Russ in his element, doing what he does, and you know, he's yeah. Anyone who's involved with Britain's Got Talent that end up with Russ as your mentor, if you want, or your you know, working or with you on your act, then you're in for an absolute treat, because he's just incredible. He's just incredible. It was Russ that made me want to do card manipulations. You know, seeing
Really?
Russ all those years ago. Actually, I'm telling you, like, it wasn't at the Mystique I saw Russ. I saw Russ at I think it was the Darlington Civic Theatre in the Ken Dodd show, and Russ did his wonderful card manipulation routine in that. I wasn't quite the same as it was the Mystique, set to the music and everything, but it was brilliant, you know. And that was kind of what I wanted, you know, wanted to learn how to do card manipulations. So yeah, it was great.
It's amazing, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So what's the next stage of your journey then? So you've been obviously, you did the holiday park, then you did the ships. You're moving on to bigger and bigger things.
I was very fortunate. I started doing more holiday parks. So I came back on the ship, and I started doing more holiday parks. I started working for Haven. I got myself a manager. And he got me into doing some Haven shows, some Haven gigs, which I again always enjoyed doing. So I'd go off and I did my first Haven gig, and then I did a few more, and all of a sudden I was doing a summer season, you know, doing a summer run for Haven. And then the booker at the time, the guy who booked, a guy called Pete Allen, he rang me personally, saying he got my number from my manager, He's just wondering if I could come along and do some magic for his daughter's school. Now, this is his words. Back then, he said, there won't be a lot of money in it for you. He said, but if you can come and do it, I think I've got something rather special for you coming up after that. So I went along and did this, and it was in Oxford. So I drove all the way down from Newcastle to Oxford, and I did this show, and I came out and I was given £20. Thank you very much. And off I came, and I'm thinking, oh my, like £20, and I'm meant to be a professional actor, and I've just been paid £20 to help cover some of the fuel costs. And then the following day, I had Pete Allen back on the phone to me again, saying, I've got you a job. And I'm thinking, oh, not another £20 job again. He said, I've got you a job. You're going next week to meet the people you're working for, and it's all for summer season. Right, okay. He said, do you want me to tell you? I said, yeah, of course I do. And I can remember the conversation clear as day. He said, you're working summer season in the Freddie Starr show. And at the time, Freddie was on TV every week, and it was the time when he just caused a stir because he'd meant to have bitten off the head of a or eaten a hamster or something like that. It was a hamster or a guinea pig, I can't remember. So there was a bit of and he'd just done a TV special. So he was quite, in the moment. So off I went, and I met Freddie and his manager, and they loved what the act, because his manager had seen me at the school, and all of a sudden I'm off now doing the Freddie Starr show. So despite the fact I got £20 for my fuel expenses, and that was it for doing the magic, it got me my summer with Freddie Starr. Freddie Starr's manager changed partway through the run. Freddie sacked his manager and got a new manager. The new manager came along, and I got on really well with him. He was two people actually. It was a man called Adrian Leggett and Anne Chudley. And Adrian and Anne used to look after, at the time, they used to look after Les Dawson and the Les Dawson estate, and Michael Barrymore. And Adrian was one of the co-writers of Copacabana with Barry Manilow, and he also once upon a time owned Apollo Leisure, which owned all of the big theatres and everything. And he just kind of moved away from Apollo and got into the management side of the stuff. So I'm now there with these incredible people that I've obviously heard about, because they've put shows on with some of my heroes, some of the people that I've always wanted to see. Working alongside. At the time, Adrian was doing this stuff, doing a show with Bradley Walsh at the Opera House, and of course, I think there was Cannon Ball in the same show, and Richard De Vere, the magician. So they were all in that show. So I'd seen all of these shows. And now I'm there with one of the producers who's now asking me if I would like to be managed by him. So I ended up being managed by Hayesmead Productions, which was Anne Chudley and Adrian Leggett, and then obviously Michael Barrymore. His situation was happening at a similar sort of time. I was meant to go on tour with Michael, but everything went crazy there. So ended up doing a whole host of other things with them. So some brilliant shows. Got to meet people like John Fisher, who produced The Best of Magic and all that. And we're working on stuff together, and we did all sorts of stuff with Anne and Adrian, and got to, like I say, meet and work with some brilliant people. Bradley Walsh, Joe Pasquale. At the time, I think I did some stuff with Joe Longthorne, with Cannon and Ball. So again, we're going back to the era when those guys were like, they still had the Saturday night TV shows and such like. So I got the chance to work with some people that again, who I grew up watching as a kid. It was great fun.
That's amazing. To think of it, all of that came about initially because you said yes to a £20 birthday.
Yep, that was it.
And if you hadn't have said yes to that, you wouldn't have ended up with Freddie Starr. You wouldn't have met those guys, and this might still happen, but I mean, it might not happen.
So it was quite a moment, and as I say, ended up doing all of that stuff, and learned so much from these guys. Learned so much from Adrian Leggett. He was he was a master when it came to productions. If you stand, you stand at the Opera House at Blackpool and you see that wall of fame and all of the shows that have gone on there. There's a point there where you can see where Adrian started his work at the Opera House. He was actually, I think he was something like the manager at the Opera House for a little while, and then he obviously worked there and booked shows in there. So I think it starts around about, I think it's something like 1985, 86, maybe a little bit later. And you see some of the shows that he's put in there, and you follow them right through. And at the time, he was taking shows that were in the West End, or he was taking shows that were in at the Palladium, and then he was bringing them, when they finished there, bringing them up to the Opera House. And he was putting in Summer Holiday. And I always remember the story about Adrian doing Summer Holiday there, and they had to demolish the stage manager's office at the side of the stage because Adrian wanted to bring this double-decker bus onto the stage and turn it round, and they did. Of course, they got this huge double-decker bus in there. But yeah, it was brilliant stories and great learning from people that I people that had done these shows, people that had been involved in some of these crazy big shows that I'd seen on TV or I'd seen live. It's brilliant. So
at this point, you've pretty much made it. You in many ways, like in all seriousness, like if you took a snapshot of where you were at that point in your career and then said to pretty much every other magician working in the UK at the time, would you like to be where Danny Hunt is right now? They would say yes. You were in an incredible position.
I always knew I was very lucky. I always knew I was very fortunate to be doing the shows I was working. I've always said, Craig, I think I caught the tail end of what was real summer season. When I was doing summer season, that we would do like 5 days at the Princess Theatre in Torquay, and then we'd go and do a couple of days over in Bournemouth, and then back and do it all again in Torquay and back in Bournemouth. So summer seasons aren't like that anymore. You don't get 5 days in one spot particularly anymore. There's the exceptions, the odd little theatre that still does that sort of, a summer show. But back then, once upon a time, all the theatres were doing that. So I think I'm very fortunate that I caught the tail end of that sort of thing, So and as I say, great to work with those masters of entertainment,
That's amazing. Now, before we go on, I've got a question for you. This is a question that comes up a lot for me.
Okay.
Any advice on becoming an illusionist? Because obviously...
Yeah, don't do it.
I said that to somebody because you don't realize the amount of hassle that's involved.
Yeah. Now, do you know what? I mean, I love to see a younger generation coming along. Like I say, we look after a group of young magicians. But there is that thing with illusions. And, when they get you, Craig, when it niggles away at you and you want to do that illusion and the bug bites and all of a sudden that's it. You've got to remember you will never drive anything else other than a large van for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. You will constantly be moving big boxes around. Mm-hmm. You don't just become...
warehouse.
You need somewhere to store it all. You don't just become an illusionist. You become an expert in DIY. You become you've got to do everything. You've got then learning how to paint. I learned how to weld. I learned how to do other things that I wouldn't normally do. But this is all just to keep these illusions on the road, And that's the thing that they do, like a car. Every illusion needs maintenance. It needs to be kept going. So yeah, I guess kidding when I say don't do it, because I've loved every second of it. I wouldn't change it for the world. Everything I've done in the way of illusion stuff, it's just been, I'm very fortunate that I've had the chance to do, those things that I've always wanted to do, and fingers crossed, touch wood, still continuing to do the things I love doing. So yeah, I think if you're going to do it, just be aware of the fact they're big boxes, they're heavy boxes. Start off small. As I say, I had a flying carpet. and build your way into it a little bit at a time. Don't take on more than you can cope. Don't go out and spend thousands of pounds on 10 great big illusions and then realize that you've got no venue to perform them in, and you need special lighting, you need special rigging, and so on and so on. You know,
where were you to give me? Where were you when I needed this advice about 15 years ago? That would have been the best thing anyone could have said to me. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And another question: what do you say? This is a bugbear of mine. This is something that really annoys me. I don't know if it does you. Those people that say, "Oh, anyone can be an illusionist. It's just pointing at boxes." All you got to do is put a box and spin it around. That's all you got to do. It's like,
well, again, I would point those people that say that straight back to watch Russ Stevens, because Russ doesn't just point at boxes. Russ has done everything when it comes to that one illusion. He's you know, you're looking at the lighting, you're looking at the choreography, you're looking at the staging, everything. You're working on absolutely everything, and then you're not just taking this box, as some people think, you're taking a box and wheeling it out on stage and doing it. Some people do. I've seen some illusionists just wheel a box out on stage and just do it, and it becomes, it's not a performance. It's a demonstration of some magic rather than a performance, and that's the thing. That's the thing with everything, though, Craig. I think even with close-up magic, you must see that yourself with with some close-up stuff. You see people doing close-up tricks. They're just going through the moves. They're not presenting it. They're not presenting it. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of work for whoever's working with you as well, not just in the way of backstage people, but particularly, of course, whoever's climbing in and out of boxes for you. I'm very fortunate that Steph, my wife, she does all the climbing in and out of boxes. She gets the cuts and the bruises, and that's the thing. You do, and ask any magician's assistant. Have you been cut and bruised climbing in and out of a box? And the answer is going to be a yes. It's a hard world.
I once gave one of my assistants whiplash. I was using a Guy Barrett split press, and I didn't realize that the stage was inclined slightly. I just didn't realize. I didn't register, and so I put her in the box, spun the box, did the thing, walk forward. Yeah, fantastic. And I didn't realize this thing was going forward. And there's like a 4-foot drop this thing was going forward, and just went off with her inside.
Oh wow! Okay.
And it smashed into like a million pieces. I destroyed my split press, and she ended up with whiplash. And I ended up, and all I had was a pack of cards. It was in a holiday card, and that was the opening illusion. And I had to fill 35 minutes with a pack of cards, and it was just like, not good.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's one way to look at it. If you've got to make sure you've got good people working with you backstage and on stage in those boxes, because you've still got to look good. You obviously still got to be able to. You do have to do the pointing. You do have to do all of that, but you've got to think about everything else that goes with it. Like I said, when you see a director directing stuff, as an illusionist, you're your own director. If you're not fortunate enough to have a director, then you've got to look at every aspect of it. From the lighting to the sound, to the choreography, everything. So yeah, great fun. Love doing it.
Oh yeah, 100%. So what happened next then? So what happened after that? So you're riding high. You've worked with Freddie Starr. You've been working with Joe Pasquale. I suppose 2 questions. Where did you go then after that period of your career ended? And also, when did you start becoming? Because a lot of people know you as an escapologist as well. And did that come about? Because at no point have you mentioned escapology at this point.
So the escapology at that point was always there. So I was always doing within the show an escape. So I had a kind of like a table of death escape that I would do. I did a Houdini milk churn escape. So there's always escapology there, and of course the sub trunk, which if I was ever chatting in the show, it was always referred back to Houdini, because everyone, they know the name Houdini. My love of escapology came when I was a kid. I sat one Sunday afternoon with my parents, and we were watching the 1953 film Houdini with Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh, and we were watching that. And I remember watching Tony Curtis playing the part of Houdini, breaking out of a prison cell, and he takes a piece of wire, wraps it around his big toe, sticks his foot through the bars of the cell, and he picks the lock with the wire that's attached to his toe. And I remember promptly getting a hair grip and trying to open up my sister's money box and sitting for ages trying to open up my sister's money box. And one day, this padlock, this tiny little brass padlock, it popped open, and I was so excited. And I clapped, shut it back up again. I still couldn't open it. About 20 minutes later, I was still trying to reopen it. So I ended up getting into lock picking. I was at the Tommy Cooper joke shop in Blackpool. I walked in there, and there was some lock picks for sale in the Tommy Cooper joke shop. I asked the guy behind the counter if I could buy the lock picks, and he said no. It was Derek Lever, and Derek said, no, you can't buy them. I'm not old enough. So again, I'm probably about 10 or 11 at this point, Craig. I came out of the Tommy Cooper joke shop, and I asked my dad if he would go in and buy them. And my dad went and bought the lock picks and a book. And I came home and I practiced lock picking. So that's how we got into lock picking. Later on in life, I qualified as a locksmith. So again, because I wanted to study the lock side of things, which is handy when you're an escapologist. So throughout the performance and doing all the stuff for Freddie Starr and the Bradley Walsh, Joe Pasquale tours, all of those things, I was putting in the illusions still. I was still doing illusions. Putting in an escape rather every now and again. And then I was given the chance to go and work on a ship for P&O, and I needed an additional set. So we needed 2 45-minute long shows. So we put even more escapes into the show to plump up the time and everything, and make 2 45-minute long sets. And it was great, and it got a great reaction. But then I also found that the audience didn't look at the escapology as if it was escapology. They looked at it as a magic trick. And some of it is, I guess, magic tricks, like a sub-trunk is magic and so on. But if I was doing a handcuff escape, and I'm standing there with 10 sets of genuine handcuffs on my wrists, and I'm, using escapology techniques, picking the locks and to break out of them, then I kind of felt that I wanted the audience to know that it wasn't a magic trick. I wanted them to know that I was, genuinely doing this. So I took the decision to not do any escapes in the illusion show again. And we decided, we were actually at a holiday park, and the booker for the holiday park was there, and he said, we're looking for something a bit different. And at this point I said, I've got a new escapology show. And I didn't have a new escapology show. I had no show at all for it. And he said, come and do it next week for me then. And if it works all right, we'll book it in all week. So I grabbed all of these pieces of escapology stuff that I'd done and put together a 45-minute long escapology show, and ended up doing this escapology show and getting booked for the summer season for it. So I actually started doing escapology shows in the afternoon, and then the illusion show at night, followed by a late night show, which was it was all of the stuff that I'd also do, which again, not many people know. I do things like the old sideshow stuff, Craig. So sword swallowing, fire eating, all that sort of stuff. So that went as a late night show as well. Yeah. So I sword swallow and hammer nails into my face and all that sort of stuff as well. So, and knife throw as well. Of course, Steph stands there while I throw knives at her and shoot the apple off of her head with the longbow. So it became that the fact that we could do 3 different shows in the course of a day meant that company didn't have to book anyone else to do those shows. They could have me there for the entire day. Of course, the company got a slight discount, and of course, it made sense for me to do 3 shows in one location every day. And I did that for years. I did 3 shows a day, 6 days a week, 3 different shows a day, 6 days a week, all through the main summer season. So for a 12, 13-week long run. And it's hard work. It's hard work, especially when you're doing, things like the escape stuff, the escapology stuff, which can be quite physical. I've over the course of the years managed to pull muscles and tear muscles, and And a silly thing, if you are going to become an escapologist, and I know you're always interested in it,
He's determined to be the first kid escapologist.
which I love that. I love that. And I think one of the things I made the mistake of, stupidly, is in all the years I did escapology, I never warmed up, never did any sort of warm up, and which is ridiculous because if you're a dancer, you got to do a warm up. If you're a singer, you warm your voice up, and I didn't. And as a young 18, 19-year-old, you kind of think you're invincible, and you're not. You can, I give myself a hernia doing breaking out of it, doing a straitjacket escape, 3 shows a day. 3 shows a day with not a gimmick straitjacket, but a regulation straitjacket. Why would I use a regulation straitjacket when I could have used a gimmicked one?
I was kind of thinking that, right? The audience wouldn't know. Is it just
the audience doesn't know?
Pride? Is it just I have this set of skills and I want to for my own.
I think that's what it was when it came to the escapology show. I really wanted it to be just pure escapology, if you want. So when you saw me, you see me upside down in a tank of water, my head in a tank of water, and I'm genuinely there holding my breath. So I'm 3.5 minutes holding my breath, and I obviously safety mechanisms built in, and knowing that you've got a good team outside. But I wanted to do that for reals. I wanted everything to happen as it should. And maybe not the most sensible thing to do, but as escapologists are hurt and injured, and some die all the time. So it's something to consider if you're doing it. It's something to consider. If you are doing escapology, just be careful. Just be safe. It's heavy going.
You don't see many people using straitjackets anymore. The only person I can think of in recent years that I've seen do it, totally different, in more of a comedy presentation, is, you mentioned him before, Michael Diamond.
Yeah. Michael's great. Michael does a great job of straitjacket. I made his straitjacket for him, so I'm going to be biased. So it's the straitjacket's it's a strong piece. And I mentioned to you before we started the interview, I think what is actually stronger, and I remember reading an interview with Alan Allen about this. Alan Allen, who I'm obviously a huge fan of, and loved what Alan did. He used to do upside down straitjacket escape, burning rope, all the rest of it, and then he stopped using the straitjacket and started using chains. And in this interview, in the Magic magazine, it was like, why did you stop doing the straitjacket and start using the chains? And he said, well, the chains would come off and they would fall to the ground, but the straitjacket he would have to pull off over his head, and it would mess his hair up. So rather than mess his hair up, he could keep looking immaculate when he'd finished. He could just brush himself off after his chain escape, and his hair was still immaculate. But I don't know how true that is, but I don't have problems with my hair going everywhere. But,
That's amazing. That's fantastic. So at what point? So you were doing all of these shows, 3 shows a day, which is just insane. I find it actually one point on that. I find it crazy that must be such a hard day to do, and the final show that you're doing is the one that I would imagine needs the most concentration.
The most concentration, yeah.
Narrow somebody,
yeah.
And this is the one, just the 2 physically demanding shows, you're knackered, and now you've got to go into doing something that literally, from a life and death point of view, you need to make sure that.
I remember one of the days we do the knife throwing out, and Steph's there, and all of a sudden I'm throwing these knives at Steph. I'm just coming towards the end of the season, and all of a sudden I see blood, and I'm like, oh my god! And every time I'm throwing these knives, and Steph's now splattered in blood, and I remember pulling knives off the board and saying to Steph, "Don't panic. It's not your blood, it's mine." And I caught the tip of my finger on one of the knives, and I guess the adrenaline's rushing, the blood's pumping, and it was the tiniest little cut. It was like a paper cut, but oh my goodness, it was bleeding. And every time I threw a knife, it was splattering all over Steph. And I dread to think what the audience thought at this point. There's blood splattered everywhere. And then literally coming to the end of it, doing the knife, the knife act, stopping and standing on stage with my hand to one side, chatting away, doing the rest of the routine that I would normally do, while Steph came on stage and bandaged up my finger to stop it bleeding. She literally just came out and patched me up, and then we carried on with the rest of the show. Which is I again, I mean, that was only a tiny little cut for me, but Steph suffered a large cut across the stomach a few years ago and ended up in hospital in between shows. So we did 2 shows for the stunt show. I cut Steph with a samurai sword, just nicked the side of Steph with a samurai sword. She ended up in hospital. They literally stuck her back together, sewed her back together, and we went on stage and did the same show again. And Steph lay there while I chopped fruit off of her stomach that had just freshly been sewn back together. So yeah, some crazy stuff we do, really, and not maybe the most sensible things to do. But you should always look at the health and safety side of it. You should always look at that. But I think there's sometimes you kind of go, you look at stuff and go, oh, I can do this. I can do it safely. And then you look at it afterwards and think that was ridiculous. That was just silly. But yeah, so yeah, there's some moments.
Wow.
Yeah.
When we arranged the interview, I spoke to Alec Powell, who is
love him. Yeah,
he's one of your biggest supporters. He's like Danny Hunt's biggest fan, and he said make sure that you speak to Danny about the Ken Dodd show. So you spent a long time touring with Ken Dodd, right?
Just over 10 years with Ken. Just over 10 years.
It's crazy. I mean, how did you get that? How did that? It just seems there's so many amazing opportunities that present themselves. For people who are watching that don't know, Ken Dodd was a legend in this industry, and being on tour with Ken Dodd is probably one of the biggest, things that can happen to an entertainer.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. I mean, it's amazing that it's just great that you got that opportunity.
Ken was, again, one of the first live shows I saw was at the Futurist in Scarborough, and it was a Ken Dodd show, and it was a long show. It was a long show, as you would expect, and it was traditional summer show, and it had all of the dancers, it had support act, it had the Diddy Men, and it also had a magician in there as well. And it was Paul Derrick, who a lot of people may remember seeing at the Magic Convention, producing his ducks and his chickens. And it was just, again, as a boy magician, incredible. And I wrote to Ken. I sent him the picture of me in the newspaper. I sent Ken the picture of me in the newspaper with a little note saying, thoroughly enjoyed the show. And one day I'd love to work for you. And years went by, and I ended up at the Magic Convention at Blackpool, and Ken came. A lady came up to me after the show and said, "If you've got a minute, can I introduce you to Mr. Dodd?" And I said, "Yes, of course you can." So it was in the Spanish Hall. We're in the Spanish Hall at the Magic Convention. So this lady, who I didn't realise at the time was Ken's partner, Anne, she took me over to Ken, and I sat down with Ken, and he said, "Now, young man, I thoroughly enjoyed your act. I'd like you to come and work for me." I went, oh, "Okay." And he said, "How much do you want?" I told him how much I'd normally charge, and he went, "Oh, I've got pains in my wallet." I said, "All right." He said, he said, "Well, this is what I pay. This is what I'd like, and if you're interested, I'll get Anne to give you the dates." And to be honest with you, Craig, if you'd turned to me and said, "There's a £5 and a bag of crisps in it for you," I'd have done it, because this was Ken Dodd. He was a legend. He is, still is, in my opinion. He's one of the greatest entertainers of all time.
Yeah.
So off I went. I started the Ken Dodd show. New Brighton, the theatre in New Brighton was the first day with him, and I loved it, and it was just incredible. I went on stage at 11:15 at night. I was the I was the first act on after the interval. So, and it was 11:15 at night. So interval at 11:15 at night. How crazy is that? I then toured with him, like I say, for 10 years. Not all the time. He had other acts he would use as well. But I did a lot. I did a lot of shows with Ken. I think we worked out we'd been in 370 plus different theatres with Ken in that time. And it was just the best time ever. I'll never. I genuinely miss him every single day. He became not just a man that I admired. I lived next door to him, not next door to him, about 5 minutes away from him for about 5 years, and quite often call in to see him and Anne. And he was just a mind full of knowledge. And when you talk to him about the act every night, you can guarantee, and he would be partway through. I'd be partway through my act, and every time he'd appear in the wing, I'd see Ken in the wing, and he got a little notebook. He's making notes, or he'd write it on his hand. He used to terrible for writing on his hand. And then as I was going off, he'd be coming on, and he'd kind of catch me by the arm on stage, and he'd whisper to me, "I'll see you in the dressing room later. I need a word with you." And off I'd go. And I go, "Ken's got notes for me," and I'd get notes every night. And those notes I got, just massively important, massively valuable to me. He was just a legend of comedy and a legend of entertainment. What he didn't know about entertainment just wasn't worth knowing. And you know what? He always very gracious with getting paid on time and all. You hear all the horror stories that maybe Ken Dodd won't pay well or he won't pay on time. He was never like that. Everything was always just brilliant for us. And I, like I said, miss him every single day. But and then sometimes you kind of go, oh, I wonder what Ken would think to this. So he was sort of a huge fan of magic, huge fan of illusions. And I worked right up until his very last show with him. I did his very last show with him. And it was just a couple of days before New Year's Eve, and he said, "Come round the house. We're having a party New Year's Eve." And I went round the house with him on New Year's Eve, and we sat, and I did a few. We wanted to see some card tricks, so I sat and did some card tricks. And I remember taking my hand, and he said, "So I won't say what he had to say, but he said some of the nicest things ever to me." And then a few months later, he'd gone. It was. It was crazy, but just incredible, man. Just an incredible man. Loved every second of it. So, and if anyone hasn't seen him, just do a little search on YouTube. Just go and watch his ventriloquism routine with Dickie Mint, or just anything that Ken does. Just go and watch it, and then you're in for a treat because you're seeing a master perform. You really are. Yeah.
You really
So yeah,
are.
that's me. That's my, like I said, very fond memories of working with Ken. And not just Ken, but there was other acts that we worked with as well. So we had people like Steve Hewlett, the ventriloquist, who's a super ventriloquist. A lady called Joan Hind. I'm going back a long time ago now. I think she was the world champion trumpet player for a little while. And again, when you listen to the stories from what Joan would have, or what Steve would have, or working with some of these other incredible performers that he would have on the bill, it was just brilliant working with him.
Wow. So here's a question. You've done so much. I mean, we've talked about some of it. We've talked about some of the opportunities that we've had, but we've only covered like 100th of everything that you've done. I mean, we talked just before we came off camera about working in Butlins, and for people who are outside of the UK that don't know, touring Butlins is one of the biggest things that you can do in the holiday park circuit. I mean, it's huge. Butlins is the place that most entertainers wish at some point they get a chat. And you've worked on and off of Butlins for years and years and years. So much that you've done, Danny. What would you say is the career highlight? What would you say that up until this point is the thing that you say, you know what, that?
There's a couple of things for me. There's a couple of things, which I think for me, stand out. Working with Ken, obviously, was a huge highlight. Loved every second of it, and having the honour to say that I was with him for his final performance, which was incredible to see. But also, looking back, we didn't know it was going to be his final performance. But to be there doing it, so that was a huge thing for me from a magic point of view. Career highlights. I would say that making the helicopter appear when we make a helicopter appear in our show. The first time we did that, I think because we spent so much time and a lot of money, obviously, on it. I was feeling the pressures of it having to work. And I remember the curtain, obviously there's nothing on the stage, curtain goes up, curtain falls down, and there's this helicopter with pilot, the blades spinning and so on. And I think for both myself and Steph, we both got a glimpse of a couple of people in the audience that were like, they were shocked. And I think that was enough for us to go, oh, that worked. So that was nice. So out of all of those things, yeah, brilliant. Loved it. I've always a couple of theatres that I'd always wanted to work in. Always wanted to work in the Opera House at Blackpool. Always wanted to work at the Grand Theatre in Blackpool. Again, because they were places that I'd seen my idols, and always wanted to work at the Palladium. And I'd managed to tick the boxes on all three. So I think, yeah, Palladium was a big deal. Palladium was a big deal at the time. My dad wasn't well, so we knew it was kind of a point where I almost didn't go and do it because we weren't sure if my dad was going to be still around by the time I came home. But I went off. We did the show at the Palladium and came back, and a very proud moment being able to go and tell my dad all about it. So yeah. So that, I think those are my highlights. Those are my. I know there's hundreds of things that I could sit here and tell you about that I've loved, because it's so hard to narrow it down to the ultimate. This is the career highlight,
Yeah,
I know I've been, like I say, I know I've been a very, 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 very fortunate man to do what I have done, because I do something that I love doing, and wow, it's just crazy, isn't it? Making a living from doing something that you love. It's brilliant.
That's the dream, right?
Yeah, too right. So.
What obviously some people might not realize this, but you also own Black Cat, the magic dealership, right?
Well, once upon a time, so it was myself and my ex-partner, we used to own Black Cat.
Okay, right.
We don't own that anymore. We actually own the magic shop that we own now is a magic shop that I used to go into when I was a kid. So I own Castle Magic. That used to belong to.
I didn't realize that was you. Oh,
there you go, Castle Magic. So
many years ago, one of those yellow clatterboxes.
Yes, yeah.
I've still got it. I love that thing. It's the best clatterbox that's ever made. I remember getting that from Castle Magic at Blackpool and just
there
being.
You go, yeah. So Mike Shepherd, I used to go in to see Mike. I used to always buy my stuff there used to be a little magic convention in Harrogate every year. I used to go off there at Easter time, and Mike would have his stand, and I used to go and buy books from Mike, and I used to buy all secondhand magic. And then Mike retired a few years ago, and I don't know if anyone knows, if you know Mike and Chris, they've always been very supportive of me. They've always been lovely people, and when Mike retired, we bought the company from him. So we took over Castle Magic, which incorporates our Escapology stuff, which is Workshop 13. So we sell Escapology stuff as well as the stuff that Castle Magic's, used to always sell. So secondhand books, secondhand children's magic, secondhand antique magic, all that sort of stuff. So as well as having all of these props that we use for our shows, we've got two great big units full of secondhand magic as well.
So what made you go into being a magic dealer? Because you're kind of a busy guy, Danny, at the best of times.
Yeah.
You don't want for work.
I guess I've always looked at it, Craig. Although I've always said I'd never retire. I've always looked at it that perhaps that One day I perhaps won't want to be dashing around the world, lugging big boxes here, there, and everywhere. So I always thought that, having something, like a magic company that's still happening, still operates now. But if I ever decided I wanted to put my feet up, I could still be involved with magic, still do what I love. And also the really cool thing, if you're a second-hand magic dealer, you get to rummage through some of the most amazing old props. We get some incredible old magic and antique magic coming in, as well as books. And as I said to you earlier, I love books, so 3,500 plus magic books. So I get to build my collection of magic books and build my collection of antique magic, and see some of these tricks that you maybe haven't seen for years, or that you've maybe only read about in the Hoffman book, and they're there right in the flesh if you want. And you can handle them and see that this prop that was made by Joseph Bland, all those years ago, that you've seen photographs in the Hoffman book. You're holding a version of it in your hands right now, and it's just holding that little piece of magic history there, and hundreds of years later, this magic prop still exists. So I love that. I love that side of it, as well as the fact that, again, for me, when you go to the magic convention where I stand on the stand, it's all about chatting to people. I love chatting to people. So I stand on the stand at the magic convention, and my friends and people come to me. I don't have to look around the convention for them. They know where I'm at. They can come and chat to me there, and it's great. It's lovely, lovely to meet new people and see the next generation coming along doing what I used to do. I used to be there. Your son came into our stand, rummaged through all of our secondhand magic stuff. That's what I did. I did exactly the same at Castle Magic all those years ago. Rummaged through all the secondhand magic, and Mike Shepherd very graciously encouraging me not to buy the trick that's rubbish. Buy this instead, or buy a book and do this. So it's cool. So I guess that's what keeps me going with the magic side, magic dealership side of things.
And do you think there's going to be a point where you hang up your performing hat? I mean, you're nowhere near. I watch it all the time. I think the most recent performance I saw of yours was at the IBM a few months ago at the Eastbourne. And man, you're in your prime. You're just as good now
thank you.
as you were back in the day. I mean, I'm not wishing retirement on you, but is it going to happen at some point?
It's very sweet of you to say that. Do you know what? There's not a point where I ever sit down and think, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like there's just no, it never crosses my mind. I remember, I think I was chatting with Ken. He was 91 when he died. He had no intentions of retiring. He was keeping going, and it's not about the fact that he needed money, because he didn't need to go out doing that. It was all about the fact. Do you know what it is, Craig? I think it's the fact that we're in love. That's what it is. We're in love. We're in love with show business. It's got nothing to do with, having to do it financially or anything like that. It's the fact that we love doing it. And I think the act will change. It'll change, and it already has done. It's changed over the years since I was a kid. It's evolved, whether we're doing the knife throwing stuff and the sword swallowing, or whether we're doing the escapology stuff. So things will change, because the older you get physically, you maybe can't always do those things. But then again, I'll point you back to Ken, and you see Ken still going, still doing what he did. He changed things around a little bit. His feet were starting to hurt, so he got himself a really smart pair of slippers to wear on stage. So instead of being stood in his shoes, he was there in his very smart slippers. So maybe when I'm 91, I'll still be pulling out the old straight jacket with my slippers on, and still wriggling out of it.
But I got one more question, which is there anything left on your magical bucket list that you haven't achieved? Because let's be honest, Danny, and I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass, but you are incredible. You have done so much, and you really have. And I think sometimes it's difficult to see that yourself. But if you asked any magician anywhere in the world, and you described what you've achieved through your career, and you said, if you could do this by the end of your career, would you be happy? And they'd be like, oh my God, if I can get 1/10 of what Danny Hunt's achieved, at the end of my career, I would be happy. And you've done all of that to this point, and you're still not stopping. You're still going strong. So, you know, you've done so much. Is there anything left, or is it just kind of more of the same?
I think it's good to always want to be doing something a little different and doing something, you know, that again that I love. I'm very fortunate that I've had the chance to work on some wonderful TV shows, doing some consultancy work on them. So, a TV show called Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman. I created some really cool things for that, as well as Houdini and Doyle and Help My Supply Teacher's Magic. So I got to work with people like Anthony Owen and Andrew O'Connor and you know, great, you know, really great producers. Again, Andrew O'Connor, you know, Young Magician of the Year back in 1982, maybe something like that. And again, great admiration for him. So to be able to see what he does and the shows he's doing, and you know, it's incredible, and to be involved with stuff that those people produced was wonderful. So I came up with a little idea for a TV show a million years ago, which I would love to do. I would love to, you know, not necessarily a magic show, but it's got magic in it. I'd love to think that would happen, but that's maybe still something that's just spinning around in my head. There's always different pieces of magic that I always want to do and still want to do that I haven't had the chance to do yet. So, you know, so there's all that sort of thing as well, and just to keep going out. I mean, we keep going out in different formats and doing different things because it keeps me fresh and it's stuff that I enjoy doing. You know, so yeah, it'd be lovely to kind of to keep doing those things and keep doing the stuff that I love doing, but also lovely, as I said, to maybe have a go at putting or pitching my own little TV show at some point. Which you never know, it might happen, it might not, but that would be certainly a dream come true. If not, I kind of feel like I've managed to work my way through my bucket list quite nicely, but I still keep finding more things to kick off the list along the way. You know.
Well, you know what, you have done so much, and one thing that you said there is it's reminded me again of another question I get on the channel. You said, hey, you love adding new stuff and evolving the show and taking things in a different direction. And I can see from chatting to you how much you've done that. And I know from seeing you over the years, every time I see your show, it's very different. There's always that one routine that's always stayed with the metal plates. I was just like, I love that. That's always there. Every time I've seen you, that's there. But beyond that, the whole show completely evolves. And a question I get on this channel a lot is from professional magicians, and they do a stage show or they do a kid show or they do an illusion show, whatever. And they have every intention of putting something new in, but they end up not, because they know that the stuff that they do works and they have good intentions. They buy the new prop, they rehearse it, they take it to the gig with them. And then when they look out at the stage, they're like, no, because I know that works. I'm going to put this. As somebody who has evolved their show over the years so much, is there any advice for how to actually put that in without actually stressing that it's going to degrade the quality of the show at all?
Yeah, do you know what? I think as well, I think sometimes, some magicians perhaps think they've got to change the show, so they change it all in one go. So, you know, you're not just changing one routine, you're changing it all. I don't think that certainly doesn't work for me. I end up feeling the pressure of it. I also, again, something Ken always said to me, he said, try something out once. If it doesn't feel right, try it again. If it doesn't feel right again, leave it a few weeks and then try it one more time. And he used to say, just do that. Just see how it works for you. And we tend to do that as well, you know, and if something isn't right, we'll change it and try it again. We do get a lot of the time, we might put something new in and then take something old out. And then you get your agents or your bookers or even audience members that have seen you before go, oh, where's such and such a trick? You didn't do that this time. And we go, oh yeah, we've taken it out, we've put this in instead. Oh, we like that, but we did like the other thing as well. So you've kind of got that moment of you can't do right for doing wrong in some respects, because they want you to you want to change the show, but people still like the stuff that was in the show, been in the show for 100 years sort of thing. So yeah, it's nice to try. And again, it goes back to the old magic as well. I love, as I've said to you before, I love the old magic. So taking an old trick and bringing that back into a show that hasn't been seen for a long time, I do enjoy doing that sort of stuff as well. But yeah, quite difficult to get. It's almost got to become whatever the new thing is that you put in the show almost has to become so well oiled, so it doesn't look out of place to your old stuff. It's got to be in there as new, but it's still got to be just as slick, just as as nice as the rest of the show should be. Because I think if that piece sticks out because it feels new, then I think that's where the audience maybe picks up on that as well. But if that makes sense, I don't know if that made sense at all. But,
no, it does. It's really good advice. Really good advice. And one other thing, we talked before the interview started. We talked about how these days a lot of people getting into magic gravitate towards close-up and not stage. Mm-hmm. One question I get on the channel a lot as well is, how do you transition from close-up to stage? How do you so for people that are watching this that are a close-up magician, they want to become a stage magician, but they literally don't know where to start. They don't know what venues to go to. They don't know how to put an act together. They don't know what tricks to buy. They don't know how it should all be structured. Is there any advice on where you could go to kind of figure that out? Or
what? Do you know what I think if you've got to remember, I think massively with stage magic, and I think this is forgotten about a little bit, unless you've got cameras, which some performers do. If you see Jamie, he's Jamie Allen. He's master of putting the close-up magic on a big screen. Unless you've got that sort of technology, then whatever you're doing, you've got to make sure that your audience can see it. And then this is a mistake that we see a lot with some of our junior magicians. They think because they've got a close-up trick here, they can't always be seen in a theatre or in a bigger venue. There might be the exception of that. You've got something like a gypsy thread, whereby you've only got a tiny small spool, but it plays big. And again, you see the masters presenting that. They take that piece of magic from here and they put it up here. So it's kind of making it bigger than it is. So I think remembering that, I think it doesn't necessarily have to be a box that you've got on the stage, but cut and restored ropes and walking knots and things like that. It's all really visual, isn't it? It's all really visual. So I think that difficult for me, because I always kind of went straight into doing stage magic rather than close-up magic. I kind of went the opposite way. I went from stage magic to doing close-up at parties and weddings and things like that. But with the stage magic, my advice would be find your tricks, find the right type of thing. So taking that smaller thing and making it here, and then getting to as many places as you possibly can where you can make it work, where you can try it out at. So volunteer your set for the local women's institute, or volunteer it for your local magic society. That's a great point of magic societies. If you got, I don't know, they're maybe not as popular as they used to be, but if you had something new, you can stand up at the magic society and you can do it for your friends, and you're doing it in a larger venue, or you're doing it in a hall or somewhere like that. I think the more you can do it, the more you'll realize what you can get away with doing in a larger environment, in a larger stage piece. So that would be my advice: get out there and try and do it as much as you possibly can, rather than doing it here. Do it here. So
great advice, brilliant advice. And I've got one final question for you.
Okay.
And I have to talk about this. And I mentioned this off camera. We have to talk about your warehouse, which has become mythical at this point. I can't remember who I was speaking to. I'm pretty sure it was Brown, but it might not have been. But I'm 90% sure it was. And whoever I was speaking to, they said, I can't imagine how big Danny's warehouse is. And I was like, why? And he said, because every single time I need to know about an illusion, I ring Danny. And he's like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've got that. It might take me a few days to get to it because it's at the back of the warehouse. And he imagined like you climbing over props and like having this giant Aladdin's cave of every single illusion ever made. Like, as someone who's illusions, I need to know about your warehouse.
It is a little like that. Do you know what? It's do you remember the David Copperfield special where we visited? You know, the camera's taking around his warehouse. He's got all these, and of course, if you ever get the chance to visit his museum, it's all there and it's all beautiful and everything. Our warehouse is nothing like that. It's nothing like that at all. It's just you go in there, you look at it, and it's flight cases. Which, if you look at it, it's just a box. You know, it's just a dull box. It's flight cases all labelled up. It's there's some illusions out and about. Some stuff that isn't flight case. We've got a couple of old magic props that used to belong to famous magicians, which I like to be able to walk in there and see them. It kind of reminds me of why I'm doing this stuff, I guess. I've got Billy McComb's old blade box, which he used, which if you've ever seen George Cavari do the blade box, it was the forerunner of that. It was what came before George and Billy were great friends, so that came about because of that. There's Orson Welles prop that used to belong to Orson Welles. These old light bulbs through girl illusion, which again, I just love seeing that. It's nice to see. So when you see those things there, a few of the little bits, you know, I don't know if you remember Paul Daniels' show years ago. He did something called the Drop Production, which was a yellow cylinder cloth that dropped down and then Debbie would appear. You see that stood there as well, and those are the things that kind of I like to see there. But then you've got the working props as well. And when you look at some of the working props, the stuff that we're using all the time, you say you look at it, it's just a box, just a flight case, a beat up looking flight case, you know, because it's got luggage packing labels on it, and you know, where the baggage handlers have stuck the sticker on to say that the dogs have been sniffed it and checked it, and you know, it's all got sticky patches on that we. You know, which looks great and it's nice, you know, you can see where it's been. But yeah, it can be a little daunting when you first go there and you look at it all, and you look at all, like I said, boxes, and to effect, to some parts of it, you look at it and go, oh, it just looks like a pile of old scrap metal, or it looks like an old piece of old black tat covered in cardboard covered in black tat, you know. But it's not. It's you know, a lifelong collection of goodies, a lifelong collection of stuff that I love, and there's nothing better than as well than you take that stuff that's in boxes or in wooden crates or that's there and it looks a little, you know, like beat up horrible crate. There's nothing better than taking it into a theatre, unpacking that beat up old wooden crate or that flight case, and taking out this beautiful prop that was made by John Gorn or Bill Smith and pushing it out onto the stage. That's what I really enjoy, Craig. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. And what's your favorite illusion, Danny, to wrap this whole thing up? What's your favorite all the ones that you've ever done or ever seen? Well, actually, let's ask two questions. What's your favorite illusion that you own or you've performed? And is there an illusion out there that you've always wished that you could do, but you've never actually got around to either owning it or performing it?
Okay. I absolutely love the helicopter appearance that we do. That the reaction it gets is always great, and I love doing it. Equally, however, I think one of my favourite magic tricks is the vanishing bird cage, which is just the tiny little bird cage vanishes. It's just wonderful. So yeah, as much as I love the big illusions, I still love the smaller pieces of magic as well. As for something I've always wanted to do, that's a tough one, that, because I've kind of made my way through a lot of the stuff. I always wanted to do, up until a couple of years ago, until about 2 years ago, I started working on it. I always wanted to do the magic kettle routine.
Oh yeah,
and we put it in our show last year for the first time and ran it all season, and then did it at the Chroma Pier for Christmas. And I would say it's one of my favourite pieces of magic ever. It started off with, I'm just looking to see if I can show you it. I've got a a magic bottle that did exactly the same as a kettle, an old Victorian bottle that did exactly the same as a kettle. And then I got a kettle as well, and then we developed the routine, and then went right. That's what we're going to do. We finally we put it in the show, and absolutely love it. It's one of the, I think, one of the nicest pieces of magic ever to perform. The reactions are always great, and yeah, it's a rather special moment. Again, we can do that, large scale illusion with the helicopter, but then all of a sudden we can go and do a trick with a kettle, and it gets the same sort of reaction. So yeah,
that's amazing. That's amazing. Danny, you are, like I said at the beginning, and I mean every word I say, you are an absolute legend.
Oh.
No, you really are. You really are. And
you're very kind. You're very kind, sir.
It's very true. And you were telling me off camera, I mean, that you help. You've got a group of young magicians that you coach, and I'm very passionate about the youth getting into magic as well. And that just shows the type of person that you are. That it's just great. It really is.
Oh, the thing is, Craig, we've got about 30 of them. We call them the Neptune Magic Society, after Cynthia Neptune, who used to help me. So we've got about 30 of them, and they're the most excitable, enthusiastic bunch of magicians ever, and that's what I like. I like the enthusiasm. I like to see the enthusiasm. It's awesome.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. Like I say, such a brilliant interview. Thank you so much. So if people want to contact you, like let's say they want some advice or they want to buy something off you, where's the best place to go?
So you can search Amethyst Magic, amethystmagic.com. Go via our website. All of the contact information's on there. If there's something you want to buy, go and have a look at Castle Magic. Castle Magic is our magic dealership, so you can
all of the Escapology stuff is on there as well, right?
All of the Escapology stuff's on there as well. If you happen to have some kids that want to come and see a show, we're touring a show this year called Top Secret, The Magic of Science, which is a kids' science and magic show. I think I'm going to plug in there for you, Craig. There it is.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Top Secret, The Magic of Science. Because going back to it, you remember me saying the teachers that helped me out was one of my science teacher, my woodwork teacher. So it's the science teacher coming through here with this one. So science and magic, with a bit of illusion in there. Great fun.
Right. Are the dates on your Amethyst website?
Yeah, you can search on the Facebook page for that, Craig, if you get a chance. You can search. There's a Top Secret Magic Facebook page, or you can drop us a message via Facebook or the Amethyst website. We'll send you the details.
Ryland is so going to want to go and see that. Well, but
I hope so. You'll be very welcome.
I'm going to want to see that as well. We're definitely coming. That's amazing. So that's running the whole season, is it?
But yeah, that's running right through till October. Something like 78 dates. So different theatres throughout the country. Yeah.
Amazing. When do you ever stop? When do you put your feet up, Danny? I mean,
it just doesn't happen, Craig. It doesn't.
I work hard, but man, I'm feeling tired just listening to you.
My little boy keeps me busy. He's very much my downtime. That's my time to spend with him. Is awesome. It's just.
I met him at the London Magic Convention.
Yes, you did. Yeah. He he comes around to all of the magic conventions, and he gets so many people who seem like he was asleep in one of our plastic boxes under the stand for ages when Dynamo came round, and it was like, fast asleep in there. Yeah.
Got to tell you, awesome. Whatever I've ever done in magic, it pales in comparison for being a dad. So.
Oh yeah, I agree. I completely agree. The best moment ever being a dad. Forget the helicopters. Forget the escapes and all the TV show stuff. Being a dad's incredible. It's incredible.
Absolutely, 100%. And how old is he now?
He's 14 months.
14 months. Yeah, that London. Yeah, he was just born. So wow. So are you get him into magic? Is he going to be?
So, he got his first magic set. He got his first magic set for Christmas. he got Craig. I'm going to show you this for his naming day, for his naming ceremony. He got this. It's a magic wand made from wood from Houdini's house.
That's amazing.
So isn't that nice? Yeah, with his birthstone running right through it. So yeah, that's what he got for his naming day. So yeah, so it's very good. Very good.
So in a few years' time, we're going to be seeing you and your son doing a double act.
Well, I think about that. I might at that point I might just be his roadie. You never know, do you?
Hey, you're welcome to my world, mate.
There we go. There we go.
These days, people phone up and go, "Is Ryland available?" Yeah, he is.
So we'll start work on his Young Magician of the Year act next month. I think we'll get on it.
That's amazing. Danny, thank you so much for jumping on the channel. Thank you,
Craig.
so
Thank you for being really lovely and really sweet. And yeah, looking forward to catching up with you in person sometime soon.
Absolutely. Anybody who's watching this, I want you to do two things. One, I want you to go and check out all of the links that Danny just told us about. Go and look. If you've never seen Amethyst perform, please go and do so. They are the best. You need to go and check them out. And also go and check out Castle Magic and go and check out all the Escapologist stuff there as well. And finally, don't forget to leave a comment down below, because I'm sure Danny will read them. It'd be really nice if you could leave a comment down below and let Danny know what you thought of the interview. And yeah, I'm going to be back again very soon with another video. But Danny, one more time, thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome, sir. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, buddy. Guys, we'll see you again soon.